General inquiry. Bhikkhus, when what exists by clinging to what, do pleasure and pain arise internally? When there is form, bhikkhus, by clinging to form, pleasure and pain arise internally. When there is feeling, perception, volitional formations, consciousness, by clinging to consciousness, pleasure and pain arise internally. What do you think, monks, is form, feeling, etc., permanent or impermanent? Impermanent, Venerable Sir. Is that which is impermanent stressful or easeful? Stressful, Venerable Sir. But without clinging to what is impermanent, stressful, and subject to change, could pleasure and pain arise internally? No, Venerable Sir. Seeing thus, the instructed noble disciple experiences disenchantment. There are many variations to this passage above, indicating that self-identity, personality view, Sakaya Ditti, and other wrong views, Miccha Ditti, stem from attaching to and misunderstanding the five aggregates. Bhikkhus, this Dhamma has been taught by me discriminately. The four foundations of mindfulness have been taught by me discriminately. The four right efforts, the four bases for success, the five spiritual faculties, the five powers, the seven factors of enlightenment. The Noble Eightfold Path has been taught by me discriminately. Bhikkhus, in regard to the Dhamma that has been thus taught by me discriminately, a reflection arose in the mind of a certain bhikkhu thus: how should one know, how should one see, for the immediate destruction of the taints to occur? Here, bhikkhus, the uninstructed worldling regards form, feeling, perception, etc. as self, that regarding bhikkhus is a formation. That formation, what is its source? What is its origin? From what is it born and produced? When the uninstructed worldling is contacted by a feeling born of ignorance, contact, craving arises. Thence that formation is born. Thus, bhikkhus, that formation is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. That craving, feeling, contact, that ignorance is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. When one knows and sees thus, bhikkhus, the immediate destruction of the taints occurs. Bhikkhus, while a bhikkhu dwells mindfully and clearly comprehending, diligent, ardent, and resolute, if there arises in him a pleasant feeling, he understands thus: there has arisen in me a pleasant feeling. Now that is dependent, not independent. Dependent on what? Dependent on this very body. But this body is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen. So when the pleasant feeling has arisen in dependence on a body that is impermanent, conditioned, dependently arisen, how could it be permanent? He dwells, contemplating impermanence in the body, and in pleasant feeling. He dwells contemplating vanishing, contemplating fading away, contemplating cessation, contemplating relinquishment. As he dwells thus, the underlying tendency to lust in regard to the body, in regard to pleasant feeling, is abandoned by him. While a bhikkhu dwells mindful, if there arises in him a painful feeling, he understands the underlying tendency to aversion in regard to the body and in regard to painful feeling is abandoned by him. While a bhikkhu dwells mindful, if there arises in him a neither painful nor pleasant feeling, he understands the underlying tendency to ignorance in regard to the body and in regard to neither painful nor pleasant feeling is abandoned by him. All-encompassing contemplations. The Venerable Mahakotika Venerable Mahakotita approached the Venerable Sariputta and said to him, Friend Sariputta, what are the things that a virtuous bhikkhu should carefully attend to? Friend Kotita, a virtuous bhikkhu should carefully attend to the 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as subject to pressure, as a disease, as a tumour, as a dart, as misery, as an affliction, as alien, as disintegrating, as empty, as not self. When friend the virtuous bhikkhu carefully attends to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of stream entry. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer should carefully attend to? Friend Kotita, a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as not self. When, friend, a bhikkhu who is a stream enterer carefully attends thus to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of once returning. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a once returner should carefully attend to? Friend Kotita, a bhikkhu who is a once returner should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as not self. When, friend, a bhikkhu who is a once returner carefully attends thus to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of non-returning. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is a non-returner should carefully attend to? Friend Kotita, a bhikkhu who is a non-returner should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as not self. When, friend, a bhikkhu who is a non-returner carefully attends thus to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging, it is possible that he may realize the fruit of arahantship. But friend Sariputta, what are the things that a bhikkhu who is an arahant should carefully attend to? Friend Kotita, a bhikkhu who is an arahant should carefully attend to these 5 aggregates subject to clinging as impermanent, as not self. For the arahant, friend, there is nothing further that has to be done, and no repetition of what he has already done. However, when these things are developed and cultivated, they lead to a pleasant dwelling in this very life, and to mindfulness and clear comprehension. Systematic outlines of meditation practice. The Buddha's teaching on ways to realize Nibbana usually includes the contemplations of phenomena as presented earlier in this chapter. When these teachings are presented systematically, then the stages of practice are usually presented in a broad general sense. The most detailed and frequent systematic teaching outlines the holy life, or way of practice of a bhikkhu from the time of ordination up to the cessation of the taints. A similar teaching given occasionally by the Buddha and his disciples is that of the 15 ways of practice, karana, and the 3 kinds of knowledge, vidya. Alternatively, one finds a group of gradual attainments, for example the 7 purifications or the 9 purifications. You can assume that the reason these teachings are presented in a general way is that the specific details of practice were transmitted through direct application according to the methods particular teachers used to train their students. Minor details would have differed among different teachers. These styles of practice would have been passed down until the time of the commentators, who compiled and recorded some of them. The most prominent of these later texts is the Visuddhimagga. The Visuddhimagga presents a gradual course of practice, both in regard to external activities as well as to the development of wisdom. In terms of wisdom, it outlines the stages of higher knowledge, jnana. Its general framework follows the teaching on the three trainings, sikha, and then expands these in terms of the seven purifications, visuddhi. Gradual development of insight, vipassana jnana, found in the Visuddhimagga, is an expansion from material found in the Visuddhimagga. Below is a summary of the systematic teaching found in the Visuddhimagga. First, let us look at the meaning of some important terms. Visuddhi, purity, gradual purification, qualities that purify beings, enabling a perfection of the threefold training and leading to the realization of nibbana. There are 7 stages to be discussed below. Parinya, comprehensive knowledge, of which there are 3 kinds. 1. Nata parinya, familiarity, recognition, knowledge of specific attributes. For example, one knows sensation, vedana, and knows that it has the quality of feeling, sense impressions. One knows perception, sanya, and knows that perception has the function of designation. One knows what things are. 2. Tirana parinya, investigation. One applies a deeper level of wisdom by knowing the universal characteristics of things, that they follow natural laws and are characterized by impermanence, pressure and non-self. For example, one knows that feeling and perception are unstable, of the nature to change and not self. One knows how things are. 3. Pahana parinya, abandonment, knowledge that leads to letting go of attachment, to freedom and to absence of infatuation. One knows how to respond to and behave in relation to things. For example, knowing that things are impermanent, one abandons the perception of permanence, nitya sanya. One knows how to act. Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, knowledge that gives rise to insight, knowledge that leads to a thorough understanding of phenomena and to the end of suffering. It is divided into 9 kinds. See below. The different kinds of knowledge, jnana, below, that are followed by numbers in parenthesis, are part of the more recently formed group of 16 kinds of knowledge, solasa jnana. They are used to verify a person's level of attainment. Principles of practice according to the Visuddhimagga. Training in higher morality, adi sila sikha. 1. Purification of morality, sila visuddhi. Good conduct, right livelihood, ethical conduct appropriate to one's social standing. The Visuddhimagga focuses primarily on the 4 moral standards for purity, parisuddhi sila for bhikkhus. 1. Patimokkha samvara sila, restraint and strict adherence in relation to the monastic code of discipline. 2. Indriya samvara shila, restraint of the sense faculties, caution while receiving sense impressions, in order to prevent unskillful mental states from possessing the mind. 3. Ajiva Parisuddhi Shila, right livelihood. 4. Pachaya Sani Sita Sila, pure conduct in regard to the 4 requisites of life, using these requisites with wise reflection, not with greed. Apart from keeping moral precepts, it is recommended to undertake as is suitable to one's personal disposition some of the 13 austere practices, Dhutanga, which were permitted by the Buddha in order to increase contentment, effort and seclusion, to eliminate defilements, to purify one's moral conduct, to complement and fulfill one's other religious observances, and to support one's overall spiritual practice. B. Training in higher mind, adhicitta sikha, concentration. 2. Purification of mind, citta visuddhi, to develop the quality and ability of the mind until there is adequate concentration to act as a basis for insight. The Visuddhimagga says this extends from access concentration, upachara samadhi, up to attainment concentration of the 8 jhanas. It presents ways of developing concentration up to the attainment of the 5 mundane supernormal powers, abhinya. C. Training in higher wisdom, adipanya sika, a knowledge of conditions, nata parinya, recognition of the noble truth of suffering. 3. Purification of views, ditthi visuddhi, knowledge of the truth of the true nature of the body and mind, which removes the misapprehension of self-view. This level of purification is also called the definitive knowledge of mind and body, nama rupa paricheda yana. 1. Here one knows that all existing things fall under the category of either mind, nama, or matter, rupa, body, and one is able to distinguish through one's own experience what is mind and what is matter. For example, when seeing an object, one knows that the sense base of the eye, the light, the visual form, and the colour are aspects of materiality, while the eye consciousness, or the act of seeing, is an aspect of mentality. Recognition of the noble truth of the origin of suffering. 4. Purification of knowledge leading to the end of doubt, kan ka vita rana visuddhi. One accurately knows the conditionality of mind and body in line with dependent origination, the law of karma, the process of cognition, the 3 cycles, vata, or any other perspective revealing that all conditioned things originate from conditioning factors and are interdependent. This knowledge brings to an end doubt about the 3 periods of time, the past, the present, and the future. It is also called the knowledge of conditioning factors of mind and body, nama rupa pachaya parigaha yana. 2. The commentaries refer to someone with this knowledge as a little stream enterer, kula sotapanna. his or her destiny is assured as one progressing in the Buddha's teaching. B. Thorough knowledge of the three characteristics, tirana parinya, recognition of the noble truth of the path. 5. Purification of knowledge regarding path and not path, magga, yana, dasana, visuddhi. The investigation of material and immaterial phenomena, nama-rupa, in light of the three characteristics. For example, one reflects on the nature of form as being impermanent, anicca, subject to pressure, dukkha, and not non-self, anatta, and then reflects in a similar manner on the four immaterial aggregates, feeling, perception, volitional formations, and consciousness. This investigation extends to all groups of phenomena, for example, the 12 sense spheres, ayatana, the 12 factors of dependent origination, paticca samuppada, the three realms, bhava, the four jhanas, the four unbound states, appamana, and the 8 concentrative attainments, samapatti, all of which fall under the category of the 5 aggregates. Until one discerns the arising and passing away of conditioned phenomena, this investigation gives rise to incipient insight, taruna vipassana. At this point, the 10 defilements of insight, vipassana nupakilesa, may also arise, causing a person to believe falsely that he is enlightened, or leading a person to attach to these mental qualities. The misunderstanding results in misdirected practice. If one possesses mindfulness and clear comprehension, however, then one is able to distinguish the correct path and avoid getting stuck in these defilements. It is at this point that one reaches the purification of knowledge regarding path and not path. There are some complicated passages in the Visuddhimagga on this level of purification. The level of insight required to generate this purification is called inductive insight, nyaya vipassana. A person contemplates by using a method of investigation described in the Pali Canon. For example, one may reflect that a particular form, rupa, past, present, or future, internal or external, etc., is impermanent without exception. It is also called contemplation by groups, kalapasamassanya. The knowledge arising at this stage of purification is sometimes called investigative knowledge of mind and body in light of the three characteristics, sama, sanna, yana. When this investigative knowledge becomes strong and one begins to see the rising and falling of all things, to see the transitory nature of things, that every object exists dependent on conditioning factors and ceases to exist when these factors are absent, the knowledge of birth and decay, udaya bhaya yana, gradually comes about. But this knowledge is new, and at this stage is called incipient insight, taruna vipassana or taruna vipassana yana. A person possessing this incipient insight is called a beginner of insight, a rada vipassaka, and is suscipient to the defilements of insight. For example, luminosity in the mind, which tend to distract and obstruct practitioners, With proper discernment, one is able to pass beyond these defilements and complete this stage of purification. C. Knowledge resulting in liberation and the abandonment of ignorance. Pahana Parinya. 6. Purification of knowledge of the way of practice. Pati Padayana Dasana Visuddhi. This refers to the highest level of insight endowed with the 9 stages of insight knowledge, Vipassanayana, beginning with the knowledge of birth and decay, the subsequent release from the defilements of insight up to the final stages of insight to full awakening. These are the 9 stages of insight knowledge. 1. Knowledge of birth and decay, Udaya Bhaya Nupassanayana, or Udaya Bhayayana, for the clear seeing of the arising and passing away of the 5 aggregates, the understanding that all things are impermanent and unable to sustain their original state, and that they are not subject to control by desire. Everything that is subject to arising is subject to cessation. In each moment of cognition, a person here discerns the origination of mind, nama dhamma, body, rupa dhamma, and the act of knowing, the one who knows, and sees the simultaneous cessation of all these qualities. This insight is powerful, but lava vipassana, and dispels the perception of permanence, nitya sanya, the perception of inherent happiness, sukha sanya, and the perception of self, atta sanya. 2. Knowledge of disillusion, Banganu Passanayana or Bangayana, when one is able to see this birth and decay in a more continuous, uninterrupted way, one begins to focus on the end point, on cessation. One reflects that all things are subject to dissolution. 3. Knowledge of the fearfulness of the appearance of conditions, Bhayatu Pattanayana or Bhayayana. By contemplating this illusion to which all things are subject, one sees that all conditioned things, regardless of which realm of existence they are found, are terrifying, since they offer no safety and must come to destruction. 4. Knowledge of disadvantages, Adinavanu or Adinavayana, when one sees that all things are subject to decay and offer no safety, one reflects on the disadvantages, flaws, and inherent unsatisfactoriness of all things. 5. Knowledge of disenchantment, the Visuddhimagga or Nibbidayana, when one recognizes the disadvantages of conditioned things, one becomes disenchanted with them and does not indulge in them. 6. Knowledge of the desire for deliverance, Munjittu Kamyatayana, with the arising of disenchantment, one wishes to escape from conditioned phenomena. 7. Reflective concentration, reflective knowledge for seeing the path, Patisankhanupassanayana or Patisakkayana, With the wish to escape, one resumes the investigation of conditions in light of the three characteristics to find a way to gain freedom. 8. Knowledge of equanimity regarding all formations, Sankarupekayana. When one investigates conditioned things, one sees their true nature and develops equanimity towards them. One is neither delighted by nor averse to conditions. One sees Nibbana as a way of peace, Santipada. One lets go of attachment to conditioned things and gravitates towards Nibbana. This knowledge is also known as pinnacle insight, Sikapata Vipassana, because it reaches the highest goal, or generative insight, Vutanagamini Vipassana, because it links a person to the path, which is the way out of attachment. 9. Compatible knowledge for realizing the truth, Satyanulomikayana or Anulomayana. When one has developed equanimity and one is intent on Nibbana, knowledge favourable to realizing the truth follows. This is the final stage of insight knowledge. Following from compatible knowledge is lineage knowledge, Gotra Bhuyana, knowledge that marks the transition point between an ordinary person and an awakened person. From this point, path knowledge, Magayana, arises, which leads to awakening. Lineage knowledge does not fall into either stage of purity, neither the previous stage of purity of knowledge of the way of practice, nor the following stage of purity of knowledge and vision, but rather it falls in between. However, it is still considered to be a distinct level of insight, since it is part of the insight process. 7. Purity of knowledge and vision, Jnana Dasana Visuddhi. This purity follows from lineage knowledge and is equivalent to path knowledge, Magayana. The arising of a particular path knowledge is followed by a corresponding fruit knowledge, Palayana, depending on the level of awakening. As stated above, it is this purity that enables a person to be enlightened and reach the highest goal of Buddhism. With realization through path and fruit knowledge, reviewing knowledge, Paccavekkhana arises, which reflects on path and fruit, on abandoned defilements, on remaining defilements, and on Nibbana. Arahants do not reflect on remaining defilements. This reviewing knowledge concludes the process of realizing a particular stage of enlightenment.